No matter how old you are, 50, 60, or 70, there is one thing that will always remain relevant. Either money works for you, or you work for money. Now imagine this statistic. 7 out of 10 Americans of retirement age today rely on Social Security as their primary source of income. This is a reality that could have been different if people had once known what I'm about to tell you. Financial freedom is not a privilege for the young or the chosen. It is a skill, it is a strategy, it is discipline, and most importantly, it is a decision. In this video, I will share with you 7 proven strategies that not only brought me peace in turbulent times, but also gave me real power over my life. Strategies that work regardless of how old you are or where you're starting from. And you know what? The best part comes at the end. Together, we'll develop a personal, practical financial plan for you for the week. Yes, with specific actions you can start taking today. But right now, I want you to think about a simple question. Do you control your money, or does it control you? When I was young, I thought the most important thing in life was to find a good job, a stable one with health insurance and a pension plan. And you know, many of us live that way. 40 years at work, 40 hours a week, only to end up with 40% of what was never enough to begin with. All of it, in the hope of a peaceful retirement. But here's the truth that was revealed to me when I was 25. It doesn't matter how much you earn. What matters is what you do with it. I remember my first meeting with Earl Schaff, my mentor. He looked at my financial situation and asked, "Jim, have you ever saved even 10 cents from every dollar?" I answered, "No, Earl, I haven't." And he just smiled and said, "That's where we'll start." That was the first principle. Learn to manage even a little if you want to have more. I was 25 and I was broke. Completely. In debt with no prospects, no plan. But from the moment I started learning financial literacy, not from newspapers, but from philosophy, everything began to change. Not immediately, but over time. Because wealth doesn't appear by accident. Wealth is the result of the right habits and the right mindset. See the paradox? People believe financial well-being is about income. If only I earned more, they say. But no. True financial well-being is a matter of decisions, a matter of discipline, a matter of long-term thinking. You can have $1 million and lose it within a year, or you can have a modest income and build a legacy. I've met people who earned very little but had freedom. Why? They lived below their means. They invested in knowledge. They didn't chase instant gratification. They built brick by brick, and you can do the same. It doesn't matter how old you are. What matters is the decision you make today. One man once told me, "Jim, I'm already 60, it's too late to start." And I answered, "When is the best time to plant a tree?" 20 years ago. And the next best time? Today. Because today is a new start. It's a chance. It's a moment of truth. And if you take responsibility for your money today, you can change not only your financial future, but your inner state. From fear to confidence, from lack to abundance, from uncertainty to wisdom. The 7 strategies we'll explore next, they're not just tips from books. They're what I've lived, what I've seen in the lives of thousands of people. And each one starts with a simple yet profound question. Are you the master of your finances or a guest in your own bank account? Remember, money is a servant, but a very dangerous master. Learn to manage it, and it will serve you for life. Otherwise, you'll serve it day by day, paycheck by paycheck. And that's not the life for you. Right now, this is the moment to take out a notebook. Because we're not just going to talk about financial freedom. We're going to create an action strategy for you at the end of this video. Not theory, a plan, and I want you to be ready. Let's start with the first strategy my mentor once explained to me. Learn to live on 70% of your income. Not 100. And definitely not 110 like most people do. This habit became my starting point. It's simple, yet powerful. At the time, I was earning very little, and I thought, I'm barely getting by as it is. How can I possibly save anything? But Earl said, if you can't live on 90% of your income, you won't be able to live on 1,000% either. That was a shock, and it was true. Financial management is a matter of self-discipline, not math. And when you start keeping 70% for yourself and dividing the rest between education, investments, and charity, not only does order come into your life, self-respect does too. You no longer spend every dollar as if it's your last. You begin to think like a builder, not a consumer. You lay a foundation. So 70% for living, 10% for investing in yourself, books, courses, knowledge, 10% for capital that works for you, and another 10% for charity, because once you learn to give, you open a channel to receive. This is not just a financial strategy, it's a life philosophy. The second strategy, save and grow. Don't just stash money under a mattress. Grow it. Money needs to work. If it's not working, it's not money, it's just paper. And I've always said it doesn't matter how much you save. What matters is how disciplined you are about it. Because discipline is the bridge between goals and results. I remember once I was late on a bill payment. It wasn't a big bill, but it hit me so hard that I told myself, enough. From now on, I manage money, not the other way around. And I started saving not when something was left over, but as soon as I received income. Automatically, systematically. Because you know what's best about automatic saving? It's non-negotiable. You just do it, like brushing your teeth, no discussion. And the third strategy, study money like your life depends on it, because it does. In school, they didn't teach us what compound interest is. They didn't teach us that a credit card is not money. They didn't teach us that the greatest enemy of financial freedom is not lack of money. It's lack of knowledge. But you can learn at any age. Today, it doesn't matter if you're 50, 60, or 80. What matters is whether you're willing to learn. I started reading everything I could find about money, about investing, about taxes, about insurance, about how wealthy people think. Not to become a financial expert, but to stop being a financial victim. And I recommend the same to you. One new lesson per week, one financial term, one principle. These are simple things, but they change everything. As my mentor used to say, one of the worst conditions is not poverty, it's financial helplessness. That's where the power lies. You can take responsibility for your financial state right now. You can learn, you can change, and when you change, everything around you changes. Your decisions become sharper, your spending wiser, your opportunities greater. Why? Because you no longer react. You lead. Ask yourself this, if every dollar were a worker, would you hire it? Or would you let it slack off, get wasted on trivialities, impulsive buys, mindless entertainment? Or would you give it a task, a purpose, a plan? You see, money is like an army. It's either disciplined or it rebels. And you are the commander-in-chief. So the first 3 steps are simple but defining. Live on less than you earn, save and grow, and learn something new about finance every week. That's the path. That's the beginning of freedom. And one more thing, start today. Not on Monday, not after the next pension recalculation. Today. Grab a pen and write this down. What is your monthly income? How much is 70%? How much is 10%? And then, take action. Because without action, there is no result. As I love to say, it's better to start small than not to start at all. The fourth strategy, and this one is a game changer, is to plan your money before it leaves you. I remember the moment I finally learned how to create a monthly financial plan, and it wasn't some complicated 10-page budget. Number it was a simple list: income, expenses, remainder, and most importantly, a purpose. Where will every dollar go? Because if you don't tell it where to go, it'll find its own way to disappear. Financial freedom doesn't begin with a big inheritance or a lottery win. It begins with a notebook, a pen, and a habit. Before a new month began, I would sit down and write, here's what's coming in, here's where it's going, and here's what I'm investing. It was my way of telling money, I'm in charge now. You may ask, what if the income is unstable? The answer is simple, plan even for the unstable. Because as I always said, a bad plan is better than no plan. An unstable income isn't an excuse. It's a call for even greater responsibility. Make a minimal projection, determine a survival baseline, and work with it. And when more comes in, don't spend it right away. Make the surplus work for you. Everything that goes unplanned sinks into emotions. Think about it. How many times have you made a spontaneous purchase and regretted it later? That's not a financial decision. That's an emotional reaction. But the moment you start planning, you start acting based on goals, not impulses. That is financial maturity. The fifth strategy, and one of my favorites, is to create assets, not just save money. Because money by itself doesn't give freedom. It must be turned into something that works without you. My whole life I've said, don't work just for money, make money work for you. And here's the big trap. Many think, well, I'm not an investor. I don't have enough to buy or invest in anything. But an asset isn't always about stocks or real estate. An asset is anything that brings you income or value over time. Skills can be an asset. A small business, an asset. Even a well-written book that's read for years is an asset. I started with buying books and turning them into knowledge, knowledge into ideas, and ideas into products. Then I learned to invest in teaching others. Teaching created workshops, workshops created income, income became capital, and again into assets. That's the cycle of power. You can start simple, one step, and you're in the game. Think, what skill do you already have that can be turned into income? What do you know? What do you own? Who needs your experience? How can you create an additional stream? See, at an older age, you have one advantage, experience. And if you structure it, it becomes an asset. Now, one of my favorite quotes, rich people look for opportunities, poor people look for excuses. And I know that may sound harsh, but it's the truth. While someone says, I'm too old to start a new business, another opens an online store from home. While one puts $50 in an envelope, another invests it in a book that changes their mindset and earns thousands. The difference isn't in age. The difference is in mindset. And one more thing, don't be afraid to lose. Many people fear investing because there's risk. But remember, the biggest risk is doing nothing. Inflation eats your savings. Life gets more expensive. And if you're not growing, you're actually losing. So smart risk is not a problem. It's a required part of growth. So what do we have so far? We're not just saving anymore. We're planning. We're not just cutting expenses. We're creating assets. We're not waiting for miracles. We're building our financial foundation. And that's the path to true stability. Look at your situation. Think, what among what you already have could become an asset? Maybe you have a spare room. It could generate income. Maybe you have time, and you could teach others what you know. Don't limit yourself to traditional paths. Wealth is creativity, it's strategy, and it's the constant question, how can I turn time and knowledge into income? Remember, it's not about how much you have right now, it's about what you do with it. The sixth strategy, and it transforms not just your money, but your relationship with yourself, is keeping personal financial records. Let me tell you plainly, if you don't track your finances, you're not in control of your life, period. There was a time I lived by feel. It seemed like I still had money, as long as I could buy a coffee. But that's not a financial decision. It's a blind reaction. My mentor asked me, Jim, how much did you spend on food last month? I said, I don't know, but I don't think it was much. He smiled and said, show me the numbers. And that's when I realized, I think means I don't know. And I don't know means I'm not in control. Since then, I started writing everything down, first in a notebook, then on cards, later in a simple spreadsheet, and something changed, not in the money, in me. I started seeing where my unnoticed expenses were going. I saw how much I actually earned, how much I spent on things that didn't matter, and most importantly, I felt in control again. And from control comes peace. Tracking is your financial consciousness. It's a mirror you may not always enjoy looking into, but in it lies the truth. And that truth makes you stronger. So my advice to you is, grab a notebook or open a file and start today. Write down how much money came in this month, how much went out, where, what's left. And most importantly, what does that tell you about your habits? Because money doesn't lie. It clearly shows what you truly value. You might say personal growth is important, but if your record shows $0 spent on books and $300 on cafes, the reality is different. That's why tracking isn't just about controlling expenses. It's about being conscious of your life. But let's move on. The final seventh strategy, the deepest one, is to think in terms of legacy. Instead of asking, how much will I earn, ask yourself a different question. What will I leave behind? Financial well-being isn't just about a comfortable retirement. It's about the mark you leave. What kind of money culture are you passing on to your children? What spending philosophy do your grandchildren see in you? What saving, investing, and responsibility habits will they inherit or not? I know many people think, I don't have much to leave behind. But you don't have to leave just a bank account. You can leave a system, an example, a principle. If your kids know you always lived responsibly, invested in knowledge, avoided debt, and thought strategically, they've already inherited something powerful, and that legacy will last longer than any check. I remember a story. An older man, a farmer, he didn't have a large estate, but he had records, journals, decades worth. He tracked harvests, expenses, profits, and when his children saw this, they saw a system. They saw that their father wasn't just a laborer, but a thinker, a planner, an entrepreneur, and that legacy changed their lives. Think big, not just, how do I get through this month, but how do I build a philosophy that will outlive me? As I once said, success isn't what you get, it's who you become. And when you become a financially responsible person, you become an example. And that's worth more than any amount of money. True wealth isn't just in the bank, it's in the heart, in discipline, in wisdom, in the ability to say, I didn't just spend, I created. I didn't just consume, I built. I didn't just live, I left a path for others to follow. And you know the best part? It doesn't take millions. It takes decisions, small, daily, consistent ones, to calculate, to save, to preserve, to give, to teach. That's the formula. So let's draw the line. We've walked through 7 strategies, from expense control to planning, from investing in yourself to building assets, from habits to legacy. And now I want you to take one more step. Apply them, because knowledge without action is just intellect, but knowledge with action is power. And now, it's time for action. You know what separates those who just listen from those who change their lives? Reflection and decision. Because you can watch hundreds of videos, read dozens of books, and still stay in the same place. Or you can pause, look in the mirror, and honestly ask, where am I right now, and what am I ready to change? I invite you to do exactly that, right now. Find a quiet moment. Grab a notebook, a sheet of paper, or your phone, and allow yourself an honest conversation with yourself. We'll go through a short assessment, 10 areas of your financial life, each with a simple question. Your task, rate yourself from 1 to 10. Remember, 1 means, I completely fail at this. 10 means, I do this consistently and confidently. This isn't a score from someone else. It's not criticism. It's your financial mirror, and it will help you see where your strength lies and where you need a plan. Write down your ratings, just in a row, 7, 5, 2, 4, 8. Don't try to be perfect. Be honest, because honesty is the first step to change. Here we go. How confidently do you manage your monthly expenses? How regularly do you automatically set aside part of your income without overthinking it? How often do you invest in your financial literacy? How clearly do you understand where your money goes each week? How detailed is your income and expense plan for the month? Do you have at least one asset that brings income independently of your job? Do you have an emergency fund, at least enough for 3 months of living? How free are you from debt and credit obligations? How often do you talk openly and calmly about money with your family? How confident are you that you are passing on a financial culture to the next generation? Now look at your list. Which area has the lowest score? That's your weak point, but also your greatest opportunity, because by changing that, you change the whole system. Like a mechanism, if one gear doesn't work, everything stops. But if you fix it, the whole thing starts to move. So, here's your assignment for the week. Focus on that one area and make a simple action plan. For example, if it's tracking expenses, Write down every purchase each evening. If it's investing in yourself, pick one book and read for 20 minutes daily. If it's saving, set up an automatic transfer of 10% from every income. If it's talking with family, schedule an open financial conversation. Don't wait for the perfect moment. Create it. I recommend write down 3 actions you'll take daily or several times a week. Small but specific. It can be something as simple as check account balance or save $5 before bed. The secret is consistency, because small disciplines create big changes. After a week, return to the same scale. Check. Has the score changed? How do you feel? What became easier? Where did confidence appear? Because with each such exercise, you become stronger, closer to financial freedom, closer to your true self. And here's what I'll tell you in the end. In this process, there is no failure. There's only movement and a pause. If you're moving, you've already won. And so we've reached the end of our journey together. 7 strategies that lead to financial well-being. 7 directions you can choose and turn into your new reality. Because in the end, success is not an event. It's not a number. It's not an accident. It's a lifestyle. It's habits. It's a philosophy. And when you begin to think strategically, act with discipline, and live with a sense of responsibility, you're not just managing money. You're building a life. I've always said you can't change the past, but you can change the path you walk from here on out. And you can do that from any point, at any age, with any beginning. All it takes is a decision. Now I want to ask you for one simple thing. If this video was helpful to you, if even one idea made you pause, reflect, and feel empowered, share it. Click like. It might seem like a small thing, but it means we're heading in the right direction. If you haven't subscribed to this channel yet, do it. Not because it's just content, but because here you'll find support, ideas, a mindset system that helps not only to live, but to grow, and more. I want to hear from you. Leave a comment sharing which of the 7 strategies was the most important for you. And what will you start with this week? Your words might be the spark someone else needs. Because as you now know, knowledge blossoms through action and through dialogue. Friends, the world is changing, the economy is changing, but some things remain constant. Discipline, wisdom, responsibility. And if you have these qualities, you have the power to create any financial future you desire. I believe that, and I believe in you. Remember, you are the architect. Your thoughts, the blueprint, your actions, the tools, your life, the project. And every day is a chance to lay down another solid brick, so be bold, be consistent, be someone who doesn't just survive in the world of money, but leads it with dignity, intelligence, and inspiration. And I'll see you in the next video. We have more work ahead, and even more victories to come. I've always said, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The next best time is today. The same goes for your money. It doesn't matter how old you are, 20 or 60. You can still make capital work for you, not the other way around. And if you watch this video till the end, I'll show you a practical model that can help you reach financial freedom. And yes, hit that subscribe button, because this wisdom is something you'll want to keep. Statistics show that most people over the age of 50 have less than $10,000 in savings. At the same time, some are building passive income without having a large amount of startup capital, just by changing their approach. And here's the paradox. The older we get, the more money passes through our hands, but the less of it ends up working for us. That's why today I don't just want to talk about investing. We're going to talk about a philosophy that didn't just make me wealthier, it made me wiser. Most people work for money, but only a few make money work for them. I say, it doesn't matter where you start. What matters is what you're willing to settle for. That's why, regardless of your age, education, or experience, you can start building income streams that set you free. I'll show you how to shift your mindset so that capital becomes your ally, not just a number sitting in your bank account. We'll talk about simple, accessible tools you can start using this week. But most importantly, I want you to start looking at every dollar you have as a potential employee. And then, sooner or later, you'll have a whole team working for you, even while you sleep. When I was young, I worked hard. And I'll be honest with you, hard work is a noble thing. But one day, my mentor said to me, "Jim, you've been working your whole life, but your work isn't leaving a legacy. You need a plan where money keeps working even when you don't. That was my first awakening. I realized there's a difference between active income and passive income. One relies on your effort, the other on your wisdom. And so I started asking myself, could I build a system where money works regardless of whether I'm there or not? Imagine that every dollar you earn isn't just a piece of paper, but a potential employee. And instead of letting that employee just sit in your wallet or lose power to inflation, you can send them to work. Buy a stock, a share of a fund, real estate, or at least save it in an interest-bearing account. The key isn't having a lot of money. The key is developing the mindset of an investor. I've often said, your philosophy is more important than your wallet. If you learn to think like an investor, money will start finding its way to you. Let me tell you a story. I met a man who was 62. He said, "Jim, it's too late for me. I spent my whole life working, not building assets." But instead of dwelling on regret, we made a simple plan. 10% of his income into index funds, another 5% into an interest-bearing account. And within 2 years, he had more savings than in all the previous decades combined. No magic, just discipline and a new philosophy. You can't change the past, but you are fully responsible for what you start today. Many people think, I don't understand investing, it's not for me. But you didn't know how to drive until you got behind the wheel. It's the same with finances. You start small, $1, one fund, one step, and gradually, confidence builds. People often ask me, Jim, how do I know where to invest? And I'd say, first, invest in yourself. Self-education has the highest return. Read one book on investing. Listen to one lecture, take one free course, and then with every dollar that comes in, you're not just spending, you're managing. I wasn't a financial genius. I just decided to stop letting money slip through my fingers, and you can make that choice too. Find a simple model you understand. Stocks, bonds, gold, real estate, and stick with it. Investing isn't about guessing the perfect time. It's about the habit of investing consistently. And most importantly, don't panic when the market drops, because a wise investor doesn't follow emotions. They focus on the long game. Remember what I said, don't become a victim of short-term swings. Become the master of the long-term vision. And one more thing, don't underestimate the power of compound interest. It's one of the most powerful tools nature ever gave us. You invest a little, and over time, it grows not arithmetically, but exponentially. But it only works for those who start and don't stop. Discipline beats talent, and consistency beats random success. Maybe you're thinking, but Jim, I'm not young anymore, and I'll tell you, it doesn't matter. Success doesn't ask your age, it asks your intention. If you have the intention to change your family's financial story, you're already on the right path. I like the metaphor. If you sit in a boat and don't paddle, the current will carry you away. But if you pick up the oar and start rowing, even against the wind, you'll gradually reach the shore. Your capital is your oar, your choices, your direction, and action. That's your motion. Remember this, investing isn't about big sums. It's about big decisions. And every day is a new chance to make a wise decision with your money. Will it work for you? Or will you keep working just for it? I often said, money is a great servant, but a dangerous master. And once you truly understand that, you begin asking different questions. Not, how much do I earn? But how effectively am I using what I have? Most people earn income and immediately spend it all on consumption. The wise, on the other hand, set some aside and make it generate more money. That's not greed. That's strategy. That's responsibility to yourself and your family. If you're not building a financial cushion, you're putting your future at risk. But if you are, you're building independence. One of my favorite strategies is income allocation. Imagine every dollar you earn is like a basket of apples. One apple you eat, one you save for seeds, one you give to charity, and one you plant to grow a new orchard. That's a model of long-term stability. 70% for living, 10% for saving, 10% for investing, 10% for giving. Suddenly, you're no longer just a consumer. You're an investor, a philanthropist, and a builder of your own future. You don't need millions, you need decisions. Have you ever thought that every purchase is a vote for your future? When you spend impulsively, you're voting for short-term pleasure. When you invest, you're voting for long-term strength. I've met people who didn't earn much but invested $50 every month. After 5 years, they had more financial confidence than people earning 3 times as much but saving nothing. It's not about income, it's about philosophy. And if you change that, your entire financial path will change forever. A friend of mine found out at 47 that he only had $800 in his account. He said, Jim, I feel like a failure. I told him, that feeling isn't your fate, it's just a signal to act. We made a plan. He sold things he didn't use, cut expenses, opened a brokerage account. A year later, he had $5,000. In 3 years, over $20,000. He didn't need a million. He needed to believe it wasn't too late. And the truth is, too late is just an excuse not to start. Investing isn't just about the stock market. It's also about creating sources of income. Maybe you cook well. Start a cooking blog and monetize it. Maybe you have a spare room. Rent it out. Maybe you love writing. Create an ebook. Passive income isn't always complicated schemes. Often, it's just about monetizing what you already know or have. The key is to stop thinking you need advanced skills. What you really need is an idea, discipline, and a willingness to learn. I've always said, financial freedom begins with responsibility. As long as you wait for help from the government, your employer, or your relatives, you're not free. But when you say to yourself, my future is in my hands, that's when real movement begins. And then every penny, every investment becomes a step toward freedom. Don't wait for big opportunities. Start using the small ones, because every big amount started as a small one, and every financial empire began with one smart decision. One more thing, be patient. We live in an age of instant gratification. People want results overnight, but investing is like gardening. You don't plant today and harvest tomorrow. You plant, you water, you wait, and only then do you reap. If you can learn to wait, you'll become wealthier than those who rushed and lost, because the market rewards patience. And so does life. Look back on your past. How much money has passed through your hands, and how much of it stayed? This isn't a judgment, it's a wake-up call, because now you know every dollar is a potential seed. And if you stop spending mindlessly and start planting, in a few years you'll find yourself in your own financial garden. And there, in the shade of the trees you planted yourself, you'll say, yes, this was a good path. There's one more important principle we need to talk about. And it has nothing to do with numbers, markets, or strategies. It's about your philosophy, because you can have the best portfolio and still be dependent, and you can have modest resources and still be free. I've always believed that real investing begins with understanding your values. Why do you want money? Not just how much, but why does it matter to you? Is it to prove something to others? To stop worrying about tomorrow? To provide for your kids? Or maybe just to have peace of mind? Because once you clearly understand your reason, you no longer need motivation. You gain meaning, and meaning is stronger than inspiration. I've seen people who made millions and felt empty inside. And I've seen others with modest means who built assets with deep gratitude and clarity. The truth is, money isn't the goal. It's a tool. And when you see it that way, you stop serving money and start building a life. I remember sitting in a small cafe with a friend of mine. He was wealthy, but exhausted. I asked him, tell me, do you own your money or does it own you? He was silent for a while. Then he said, I've built assets, but I never built meaning. That's a truth many people realize far too late. You can invest in stocks, bonds, crypto, but if you're not investing in your own growth, you'll always be at the starting line. That's why I insist. Invest not just in income, but in depth. Success is harmony. It's when your money, actions, goals, and inner state all move in the same direction. That's why it's not enough to count profits. You need to ask whether those profits are actually making you happier. Because maybe you don't need more money. Maybe you need more clarity, more focus, less chaos. You'd be surprised how many financial problems disappear when you sit down in silence with a piece of paper and honestly ask yourself, what do I truly need and what am I willing to do to get it? Now let's talk about something else, the energy of money. Yes, that's not a term from an economics textbook, but it's real. Money is a reflection of your energy, your determination, your consistency. It doesn't show up by accident. It shows up for those who prepare, who stay disciplined, who track their finances, who plan. There were times in my life when I earned very little, but even then, I acted like a wealthy person. Not because I was pretending, but because a wealth mindset isn't about the balance in your account. It's about how you treat every dollar. You buy a $5 coffee. That's not just coffee. That's a choice. You put those $5 into an investment. That's your direction. You don't pay yourself first. That's your unconscious habit. And yes, every little choice shapes your future. That's why I say either you manage your money or it manages you. And managing is about habits. It's a notebook. It's a spreadsheet. It's an evening reviewing your budget. It's a conversation with your partner about shared financial goals. It's not about control rooted in fear. It's about responsibility rooted in freedom. Another critical aspect, legacy. How are you passing on financial culture to your family, your kids, your grandkids? Because if you're learning but not sharing, that knowledge dies with you. But if you teach, even by example, you start a financial relay that can transform generations. Don't be afraid to talk about money at home. Don't be afraid to set an example. Kids don't listen, they observe. If they see you saving, planning, budgeting, they don't just copy your actions. They adopt your mindset. And lastly, allow yourself to feel gratitude, even for the resources you have now, even if it's not much. Because gratitude amplifies wealth. A person who can't be grateful will never be satisfied, no matter how much they earn. And on the flip side, someone who celebrates progress is more likely to build freedom. You've taken your first step, and that alone is something to be grateful for. You've started thinking differently. And that's already an investment. You know, I often say, change doesn't happen when you read a new book. It happens when you stop being the same person. And if after this video you can no longer look at money the way you used to, that's your breakthrough. And from that point, real growth begins. And now the moment has come when we don't just talk and we take action. I've always believed wisdom isn't knowledge. It's the ability to apply knowledge in real life. Now imagine that you and I are sitting together. I look you in the eye and ask, how are you really doing? Not the answer you give your friends, the one you give yourself. Honestly, no filters. Let's do a quick self-assessment together. It'll only take a few minutes, but the results could change your entire financial path. Ready? Grab a piece of paper or open a notes app on your phone, whatever works for you, because you're not just a listener, you're a participant. And participants get results. Think about the following and rate each one from 1 to 10. 1 means I'm struggling, and 10 means I feel confident and solid. How would you rate your ability to save regularly, your understanding of investment tools, how well your money works for you instead of just you working for it, your financial discipline, your willingness to take action even when it feels scary or unclear? This isn't a test, it's a mirror. And if you see a score under 5 in any area, that's not failure. That's an invitation to start moving. Now take a look at your answers. Which of the 5 questions came out as your weakest point? That's the one we'll focus on for this week. Just one. Because real change comes from focus, not chaos. Let's say you gave yourself a 3 for discipline. That means it's time to create a simple 7-day plan. One small action each day. For example, day 1, read a short article on budgeting. Day 2, open a savings account. Day 3, review your expenses, and so on. Small steps that lead to big change. I've often said consistency beats rush. Don't try to change everything in a day, just start. Because the first step already shifts your direction. And if you actually wrote down your answers, I encourage you, don't keep them in your head. Write them out. Share them in the comments if you're ready. Someone out there might see themselves in your words and take their first step too. And one more thing, if this video gave you a nudge, hit the like button. Subscribe to the channel. Why? Because every week we have conversations like this. Honest, simple, and actionable. And maybe the next video will be the one that doesn't just change your day, it changes your life. Also, leave a comment. What step are you going to take this week? Because as I've said before, a spoken commitment is 3 times stronger than a silent intention. Now imagine it's been a week. You return to your answers. Remember that one area you chose to work on? You took small steps each day. Some days were tough, some days you didn't feel like it, but you kept moving. And now, take a look at yourself. You're not the same person you were a week ago. Why? Because a person who takes action changes. And money? It's simply a reflection of your internal state. I want you to remember one simple truth. There's nothing magical about financial freedom. It's daily decisions. It's the power of habit. It's the investor's mindset, built like a muscle, one step at a time. If you saved even $10 this week, you've already planted the seed of wealth. If you read even 1 page about investing, you've already built a piece of financial confidence. If you reviewed your expenses, you've already taken your first step toward freedom. And here's what matters. Don't stop. Because change loves consistency. You can pick a new area to work on right now. Maybe this week it's not discipline, but understanding the market. Or maybe it's creating a new income stream. Imagine if each week you focused on one weak spot. A year from now, you won't recognize yourself. You won't just be stronger, you'll be freer. Remember when I said money is your employee and you're the manager? So will your team sit idle, or will you give them tasks, direction, and strategy? The choice is yours, but know this, you already have everything you need to begin. You're not weaker than anyone else. You're not behind. You're exactly where you need to be. And every stage is the right one, as long as you're not standing still. If this video gave you a push, I'm glad. If it made you pause and reflect, then this wasn't a random meeting. I invite you to stick with us. Subscribe, hit the bell, leave a comment, type "I started" if you truly have. Because the moment you speak your action out loud, you anchor it in reality. You're not just a listener. You're already a participant, and participants change the game. At 25, I was broke. At 31, I already had $1 million. What changed? Not the world. Me, my principles. Financial freedom isn't an event, it's a mindset. In this video, I'll share 5 laws that changed my financial destiny forever. They work at any age and are especially important when life demands stability. Stay with me until the end, because the practical part will help you get started today. And if you feel like this is about you, subscribe. Here, we talk about what's real. Did you know that, according to research, over 60% of people aged 50 plus don't have enough savings to last 3 months without income? And it's not because of a lack of income, but a lack of rules. Wealth isn't about how much you earn, but how wisely you manage that flow. I didn't learn these laws in university or from books. I learned them when I sold the TV remote to buy bread. And in that moment, I made a decision. Never again. Never again would I let randomness control my life. I didn't have a financial mentor, but I had hunger, I had thirst, I had an idea. What if I started acting like someone who's already wealthy? That's when I stumbled upon the concept of laws. Unwritten, simple, yet unbreakable, followed by those who don't just survive, but build. Gradually, I gathered them, tested them on myself, and began teaching others. Today, I'll share 5 of them with you, and I ask you not just to listen, but to listen as if your destiny depends on it, because sometimes it truly does, especially when there's less time than before, when you can no longer wait for a better moment, because the best moment is now. And at the end of this video, I'll give you a practical task. So these ideas become not just inspiration, but the beginning of action. Let's begin. I always said wealth is not the amount in your bank account. It's the sum of your habits, your decisions, your discipline. And the first law of financial freedom sounds simple, but it changes everything. Don't spend everything you earn. I learned this when I was spending even what I didn't yet have. A credit card gave me a sense of power, but it was an illusion of power. True power is saying no when others say yes. My mentor once said, "Jim, if you earn $1,000 and spend $1,001, you're living better than you can afford, and that gap will destroy you." I remember sitting in a cheap motel calculating my habits. It turned out I was living not by my income, but by my desires. And desires are bottomless. That's why law number 1 is, live below your means, not because you're poor, but because you're wise. Now the second law, I call it the tithe rule for yourself. Not for church, not for charity. First, for yourself. Save 10% of every income. Yes, even if it's $10 out of $100. Because it's not about the amount, it's about the habit. You know what I noticed? People who say, "I'll save when I earn more," don't save even when they do earn more. Why? Because it's not about income. It's about character, about decision, about practice. This law taught me self-respect. When I put money into a reserve account, I'm telling myself, you matter more than a new thing. Your freedom matters more than temporary pleasure. It's an act of self-respect, and self-respect is the foundation of all finances. The third law, money must work. Not just sit there, but work. When I first heard that, I thought, how can money work? It's not a person. But it turned out every dollar is your hired employee. And if you leave it idle, you're a bad manager. I started investing small amounts, a bit in education, a bit in books, a bit in basic tools. And those investments began to pay off. Money invested in knowledge gives the highest return. That's why I say the first investment isn't in the stock market, it's in your mind. If you don't know what to do with money, it won't stay with you. And once your mind expands, opportunities will find you. That's why I collected books like others collect furniture, because a book can change not just your day, but your destiny. The fourth law, avoid bad debt. You see, there are debts that work for you, and debts that work against you. The difference is whether they create an asset or consume one. If you take a loan for a TV, you're going into debt for comfort. If it's for education or a tool for work, that's potentially an investment. But the key is not to deceive yourself. Debt isn't evil, but it is a burden. And burdens weigh you down. My mentor once told me, don't carry what you can't lift. And I realized that freedom is when your paycheck belongs to you, not the creditor. After that, I started eliminating my debts, one by one. And with each cleared debt, I felt lighter, freer, stronger. The fifth law, keep learning about finance. The world changes, and the rules of the game change with it. If you know how to handle money at 40, that's not enough to stay stable at 60. You must be a lifelong learner, not for a diploma, but for security. Because financial literacy isn't a trend, it's a weapon, especially in times of instability. I remember one evening sitting with a notebook trying to make sense of tax nuances. Not because I love numbers, but because I love freedom. Every new skill, every new insight is another step toward independence. Even if it feels hard, keep going. Because the best things in life are not always easy, but always worth the effort. And here's one more thing. These laws work at any age. They don't require youth. They require determination. I've seen people start at 60 and catch up with those who started at 30, not because of speed, but because of consistency. Because day by day, week by week, month by month, they acted. It's not magic, it's math, and math is on the side of the persistent. Now take an honest look at your life. Are you following these laws, or maybe you're living against them, hoping things will somehow change on their own? Freedom doesn't come to the one who waits. It comes to the one who acts. Today, with a small step, and even if it feels like it's too late, remember, it's better to start at 60 and live free after 65 than to remain a prisoner of circumstances. When I first heard these laws, I thought, this sounds too simple, but then I remembered the truth is always simple. It's not hard to understand, it's hard to apply, because each of these principles doesn't require genius. It requires maturity, self-discipline, and that's exactly what most people lack. I often say, we don't suffer from a lack of information, we suffer from a lack of action. And so, let me dive deeper, because behind every law is not just advice, but an entire philosophy. Let's start with this. Financial freedom is not just about money, it's about choice. The ability to say no to a job that drains you, yes to a trip you've dreamed of taking, no to fear of the unexpected, and yes to peace of mind, knowing you're not at the mercy of the world. And you know where that choice begins? With thought. Because financial freedom is a state of mind before it is a state of your bank account. Your finances are a mirror of your beliefs. If you believe money is evil, it will avoid you. If you believe wealth is only for the young, you've already cut off your own oxygen. But I tell you, wealth isn't about age, it's about structure, principles, continuous growth. I know people who started at 55 and did more in 5 years than they had in the previous 20, because they acted systematically. Like a farmer who knows, first you plant, then you wait for the harvest. Another crucial factor is your environment. The people you surround yourself with. If everyone around you lives paycheck to paycheck, sees debt as normal, and devalues saving, you'll start thinking the same way. It's like swimming in a saltwater pool and thinking it's fresh. You won't even notice you've adapted. That's why I always said, surround yourself with people who make you grow. Even online, read, listen to, and watch those who have what you aspire to. Because thoughts are contagious, and financial thoughts are too. Now let's talk about the most common sabotage, excuses. I don't understand investing. I don't have enough time. I'm too old to start. I've heard this dozens of times. And you know what that is? It's a defense mechanism. Because acting is scary, but making excuses is comfortable. Yet excuses will never give you freedom. They give you the illusion of peace. And illusion is a trap. I remember a man I met after one of my seminars. He was 62. He said, Jim, I have a $900 monthly pension, no savings, and a bit of shame in my pocket. Is it too late for me? I looked him in the eyes and said, too late is when you're no longer here. But if you're here, if you're breathing, it's not too late. It's just a different starting point. We sat down, made a plan. 3 years later, he had a 6-month reserve, a small income from an online asset, and a smile. The kind that appears when someone feels in control again. That example shows financial freedom doesn't come instantly. It appears step by step. And the key is to start not tomorrow, not Monday, today, sometimes with something simple. Write down where your money goes. Even that action awakens awareness. Because until you see the picture, you can't change it. It's like weight. Until you step on the scale, it seems like everything's fine. Financial weight is also invisible until that final drop breaks the balance. Now pay attention to one more thing. Emotions and money. That's a pair that often don't get along. When we're upset, we spend. When we're happy, we spend. When we're afraid, we stash cash under the mattress. But financial wisdom is about action, not emotion. My principle was simple. Don't make financial decisions based on emotions. As my mentor said, want to buy something? Delay the purchase by 48 hours. If the desire is still there, maybe it's worth it. Remember, every dollar you don't spend is another brick in the foundation of your freedom, not a sacrifice, a contribution, not a limitation, an investment. And when you change your attitude toward financial discipline, it won't feel like a burden anymore. It will become a form of care for yourself, for your future self, for your family. And here's one more simple but profound thought. Lost money isn't the worst thing. Lost years are. The years you lived in debt, in stress, in constant fear of the unknown. And I'm not saying everything can be changed overnight, but I do know this for sure. The path starts with a decision. One law, one action, one habit. And from there, everything can begin to change. You already have everything you need. Don't go searching for another secret formula. There aren't many laws, but they are deep. And when you internalize them, not just understand them, but live them, you'll see life changes. Not instantly, but inevitably. Because financial freedom is not an event. It's the result of daily choice, a mature choice, a responsible choice. And I believe if you're watching this video, you are already someone ready to choose responsibly. Someone who no longer wants to live somehow. Someone who wants peace, strength, and dignity. And that is true wealth. Let's pause here, because real change doesn't begin with inspiration. It begins with action. And the first action is always an honest look at yourself. I'm offering you a small exercise that changes more than it seems. We won't measure success by someone else's standards. We'll measure your readiness for freedom. Right now, imagine a scale from 1 to 10 in front of you. 1 means, my finances are a complete mess. I don't even know how much I spend each month. 10 means, I track my finances down to the dollar, have a safety cushion, invest, and sleep peacefully. Got it in your mind? Now answer these questions honestly. No one's judging, just you. First, how consciously do you spend your money? 1, emotions drive your spending. 10, every dollar has a purpose. Second, do you regularly save a portion of your income? 1, you don't save at all. 10, you have a consistent habit, no matter the amount. Third, do your finances create anything for the future? 1, your account is always at 0. 10, you follow a clear financial strategy. Fourth, how financially independent do you feel? 1, you depend on outside circumstances, your job or chance. 10, you feel calm even if things go wrong. Fifth, how confident are you in your financial future? 1, fear and uncertainty. 10, peace and a plan. Answer each one. Write them down in a notebook, on your phone, even on a napkin. But do it, because what's written down becomes real. Now, the most important part. Look at those 5 scores. Which one is the lowest? That's your focus for the week. 1 point, 1 weak spot. It's what needs your attention most right now. Because change doesn't begin with everything at once. It begins with 1 vulnerable link. Your task is to choose 1 concrete action that you will do every day for the next 7 days to improve that area. If it's saving, open a separate account and put away even $1 a day. If it's spending, track every purchase. If it's feeling secure, read about financial literacy for 10 minutes a day. It's not the scale that matters, it's the consistency. You're building a new habit, you're shaping a new identity. And trust me, in a week, you'll look at yourself and say, I'm already different. Because the moment you stop hoping and start acting, you become freer. One more thing, if you've made it this far, it means you have strength, you have desire, you have a spark within. And I'd love for us to continue this conversation together. So if this video gave you value, hit like, not for the algorithm, but to affirm to yourself, this matters. Subscribe to the channel if you're not with us yet, because here, we don't just talk about success, we build it, calmly, deeply, authentically. And I invite you to be part of this journey. And finally, share in the comments. Which of the 5 questions had your lowest score? And what action are you choosing for this week? Your comment is more than just words. It's your first step toward change. And maybe it will inspire someone else to take theirs. You know what I've realized over the years? Financial freedom isn't about big leaps. It's about daily decisions, about small yeses to self-discipline and small no's to temptation. It's the quiet dignity of knowing that your actions today are shaping your tomorrow. I've seen lives transformed by people who started from nothing, but they acted. They didn't wait for permission. They didn't make excuses. They chose responsibility over complaints. And in that lies real strength. I've always said, it doesn't matter where you've been. What matters is where you're going. And today might just be the moment you decide, enough waiting. It's time to build. Because if not you, then who? And if not now, then when? Remember, financial freedom isn't about numbers. It's about the freedom to choose, about dignity, about peace. And it doesn't begin tomorrow. It begins with what you do after this video. Take these 5 laws, choose one, apply it. And in a week, a month, a year, you'll look back and say, that was the decision that changed everything.